Samuel L. Jackson stopped mid-story, his eyes locked onto someone in the audience, and without a word to Jimmy Fallon, he walked off the stage. The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Studio 6B at 30 Rockefeller Plaza. A Thursday night taping in October. The kind of episode that happens 3 times a week, 50 weeks a year. Comfortable, predictable, safe. Samuel L. Jackson was the main guest, one of the biggest movie stars in the world, promoting his latest action thriller. He and Jimmy had done this dance dozens of times. The banter was easy. The stories were rehearsed but felt spontaneous. The audience loved every second. Jimmy was in the middle of asking about a funny incident on set. Samuel was leaning back in his chair, getting ready to deliver the punchline. The cameras were positioned perfectly. The roots were ready with a musical sting for the laugh. Everything was running like clockwork. And then Samuel's eyes drifted past Jimmy, past the cameras, scanning the audience the way guests sometimes do to connect with the crowd. His entire body went rigid. The smile vanished from his face. His hands gripped the armrests of the guest chair. He leaned forward slowly, squinting slightly as if trying to confirm what he was seeing. Jimmy noticed immediately. "Sam, you good, man?" Samuel didn't answer. He stood up. Not the casual standing of someone stretching or adjusting position. This was abrupt, urgent. "I'm sorry, Jimmy," Samuel said, his voice strange, tight, emotional, nothing like the smooth confidence he'd had seconds ago. I need a second." That night on The Tonight Show, Samuel L. Jackson froze mid-inter, stared into the audience, and while Jimmy Fallon watched in complete shock, walked off stage and headed straight into the crowd. Jimmy's blue interview cards slipped from his fingers and scattered across his desk. Questlove's drumsticks hovered motionless above his kit. The audience fell into confused silence. 300 people suddenly uncertain whether this was part of the show or something else entirely. Samuel stepped down from the raised stage platform, moving with purpose toward the tiered audience seating. The cameras scrambled to follow him. Operators frantically adjusting angles to capture whatever was happening. Jimmy stood behind his desk, one hand raised in a gesture of complete bewilderment. Sam, where are you going?" Samuel didn't turn around. He was walking up the steps between audience sections, his eyes locked on the second row. The audience members instinctively leaned back, creating a path, whispering to each other in confusion. In the second row, slightly right of center, sat an elderly African-American man in his 70s. He wore a simple cardigan over a collared shirt. The kind of outfit someone wears when they've won free tickets to a taping and want to look nice, but not overdressed. His hands gripped the armrests of his seat, knuckles white. His eyes were wide, tears already forming. Samuel stopped directly in front of him. For a long moment, either man spoke. The entire studio held its breath. "Marcus?" Samuel's voice cracked. "Marcus Washington." The elderly man nodded slowly, unable to speak. "Oh my God." Samuel's hands went to his face. "Oh my God, it's really you." The control room erupted into chaos. Director Gavin Sell was shouting into his headset. "Keep rolling. All cameras on this. Someone tell me what's happening." Producer Katie Hochmeyer stood behind Gavin, hand over her mouth, staring at the monitors. "I don't know. This isn't scripted. This is real." Jimmy stopped mid-joke. The entire studio froze. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what happened 47 years earlier. Samuel L. Jackson wasn't always Samuel L. Jackson, Hollywood icon and one of the highest-grossing actors of all time. In 1977, he was a 28-year-old struggling actor in New York City doing regional theater, taking whatever small roles he could find, wondering if he made a terrible mistake leaving his teaching job in Atlanta to chase this dream. He was also struggling with addiction. Alcohol first, then cocaine, the kind of spiral that destroys careers before they even start. He was functional enough to keep working, but barely. He was angry, lost, making terrible decisions, burning bridges faster than he could build them. One night in November 1977, Samuel hit rock bottom. He'd been fired from a small off-Broadway production for showing up high. His girlfriend had left him. His money was gone. He was sitting on a bench in Washington Square Park at 2 o'clock in the morning, contemplating whether this was the end. An elderly homeless man approached him, not begging, just sitting down on the other end of the bench like he had as much right to be there as anyone. They sat in silence for a while. Then the man spoke. "You look like someone who's lost something important." Samuel laughed bitterly. "Yeah, my whole damn life. Can't lose what you haven't built yet," the man said simply. Despite himself, Samuel looked at the man more carefully. He was maybe in his 60s, weathered by years of hard living, but his eyes were clear and kind. There was a dignity about him that poverty hadn't erased. They talked for 3 hours. The man's name was Marcus Washington. He'd been a jazz musician in the 50s and 60s, played trumpet with some of the greats, or so he claimed. Had a family once, lost it all to heroin, been homeless for nearly a decade. The thing about hitting bottom, Marcus said as the sun started to rise over the park, is that you finally know which direction is up. You're looking at the ground right now, but once you decide to look up, that's when the climb starts. What if I can't climb? Samuel asked. Then you crawl. Then you stand. Then you walk. Then you climb. But you got to want it. You got to want to be the person you know you could be instead of the person you're scared you are. Marcus reached into his worn jacket and pulled out a small object. A trumpet mouthpiece tarnished with age. This is from my first horn. Only thing I kept when I lost everything else. I want you to have it. I can't take that. You can. And you will. Because 20 years from now, when you're somebody and you will be somebody, I can see it. You're going to remember this night. You're going to remember that some homeless guy believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. And maybe you'll help somebody else the way I'm trying to help you. Samuel took the mouthpiece. He kept it in his pocket for the next 6 months while he got clean. While he clawed his way back into theater work while he slowly, painfully rebuilt his life. He never saw Marcus Washington again. He went back to Washington Square Park dozens of times, looking for the man who had given him hope on the worst night of his life. He asked other homeless people if they knew Marcus. Nobody did. The man had vanished like he never existed. But Samuel kept the trumpet mouthpiece through every audition, every role, every success. When he got his first real movie role, he had the mouthpiece in his pocket. When he filmed Pulp Fiction, it was in his trailer. When he became one of the most recognizable actors on the planet, that tarnished trumpet mouthpiece sat in a small box in his home, a reminder of the night a stranger saved his life. Subscribe and leave a comment because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Now, 47 years later, that stranger was sitting in the second row of The Tonight Show and Samuel L. Jackson was standing in front of him with tears streaming down his face. I looked for you, Samuel said, his voice. For years, I looked for you. I wanted to thank you. I wanted to tell you that you were right, that I climbed. Marcus was crying too, not even trying to hide it. I knew you would. I knew it that night. How did you? Samuel couldn't finish the question. Marcus smiled weakly. My granddaughter won these tickets in some radio contest. She loves your movies. She begged me to come with her. I almost said no. I don't like crowds anymore. But she insisted. He gestured vaguely to his right where a young woman in her 20s sat with tears streaming down her face, her hand over her mouth. That's Jasmine. She has no idea who you're talking to right now. Samuel looked at Jasmine, then back at Marcus. You have a granddaughter. 3 of them. 2 grandsons too. Got my life together, Sam. Took me 10 more years after that night we met, but I did it. Been clean since 1987. 37 years now. The audience erupted in applause. Not the manufactured TV applause. Real thunderous, cathartic applause. People were standing crying. The Roots started playing something soft and emotional. Jimmy Fallon was openly weeping at his desk, not even trying to maintain any professional composure. Samuel pulled Marcus into an embrace. The old man, smaller and frier than he'd seemed 47 years ago, held on to Samuel like he was precious cargo. When they finally separated, Samuel reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small velvet pouch and opened it, revealing the tarnished trumpet mouthpiece. I've carried this for 47 years, Samuel said, his voice breaking. Every day, every role, every success, I kept it because it reminded me that when I had nothing, a stranger gave me everything. Behind the scenes, Fallon made a decision that defied every producer's expectation. Jimmy walked out from behind his desk, something he'd done before for comedy bits. But this time, the energy was completely different. He approached Samuel and Marcus slowly, respectfully, like he was entering sacred ground. Marcus, Jimmy said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know if you know what you're watching, but Samuel L. Jackson is one of the most successful actors in history. He's been in over 150 films. He's grossed more money at the box office than almost any actor alive. And he just told this whole audience and millions of people at home that you're the reason why. Marcus looked overwhelmed. I just talked to him. I didn't do anything special. You gave him hope when he had none. Jimmy said that's everything. Jimmy turned to his producers in the control room, though he was really addressing everyone. We're not going to commercial. We're not cutting this. Whatever our schedule was, it doesn't matter anymore. This is what matters. He looked at Samuel. What do you need? Samuel wiped his eyes. I need to know his story. I need to know what happened after that night. He looked at Marcus. I need to understand how you knew. How you saw something in me when I couldn't see anything in myself. But this is the moment no one in the studio and no one watching at home ever saw coming. Marcus took a shaky breath. Can I tell you the truth? The real truth? Please. I saw myself in you that night. 20 years earlier. That had been me. Young, talented, lost, destroying everything I touched. And nobody helped me. Nobody stopped me on a park bench and told me I could climb back up. I lost everything because I was alone. He paused, composing himself. When I finally got clean years later, after I'd lost my wife, my kids, everything, I made myself a promise. If I ever saw someone where I had been, I would be the person nobody was for me. I would be the one who said, "You can make it. You saved my life." Samuel said simply, "No." Marcus corrected gently. "You saved your own life. I just held up a mirror so you could see who you really were underneath all that pain." Jimmy gestured to Marcus's granddaughter, Jasmine, who was still sitting in her seat, completely overwhelmed. "Jasmine, come here. Please." The young woman stood on shaky legs and made her way to where the three men stood. Samuel immediately pulled her into a hug. "Your grandfather is a hero," Samuel told her. "Do you understand that? Everything I am, everything I've done, he made it possible." Jasmine nodded, crying too hard to speak. Samuel looked at Jimmy. "Can I do something crazy? After what just happened, I think crazy is relative." Jimmy said with a tearful laugh. Samuel pulled out his phone. Right there live on television. He made a call. The audience stayed silent watching. "Quentin, it's Sam. I need you to do something. That small role in your next film. I want Marcus Washington to have it. My friend from 47 years ago, the man who saved my life. Can you make that happen?" A pause. Then Samuel smiled. "Thank you, brother." He turned to Marcus. "You're going to be in a movie if you want to be." Marcus laughed through his tears. "I'm 74 years old, and you're about to be in a Tarantino film," Samuel said. "Sometimes life comes full circle." Jimmy reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a handkerchief, an old-fashioned gesture that felt perfect for this moment. He handed it to Marcus. "Keep it," Jimmy said quietly. "Consider it a trade for what you gave Sam. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten." The Tonight Show didn't air its scheduled segments that night. They kept the cameras rolling while Samuel and Marcus talked, while Jasmine cried and hugged her grandfather, while the audience stayed in their seats witnessing something bigger than entertainment. Marcus did appear in Quentin Tarantino's next film. One scene, 2 lines, his name in the credits. Samuel brought him to the premiere. They walked the red carpet together, and in Samuel L. Jackson's home. In a glass case next to his award sits a tarnished trumpet mouthpiece and Jimmy Fallon's handkerchief. Reminders of the night television stopped pretending and became real.